What's up, all you beautiful people? Today I want to share with you 3 surprisingly simple steps to crafting a pretty remarkable life. Just full disclosure though, remember, simple does not necessarily mean easy, right? Simple is, oh, I need to lift this alligator over my head. Relatively simple. Pretty damn hard in practice to lift the alligator. He's thrashing, he's trying to bite you, right? So don't confuse simplicity with ease. However, what I've found is that the most profound results often come from the most simple inputs. And so these 3, I think, if you were to make space and time for each one of these every single day, you'd be doing pretty good. You'd have the makings, the foundation of a pretty remarkable life. So the first one is to make space for boredom. Boredom is a very interesting evolutionary adaptation. If you think about why it is that humans feel boredom in the first place, if you think about that, why did we evolve to feel bored? And most people would describe boredom as kind of being an uncomfortable state, right? Like it feels like it's almost like this, like wearing a wool shirt. It has like this itch to it where you're like, I would like to not feel this way. It's hard to describe, but the definition, or the way that most people describe boredom, as being as kind of an unpleasant feeling. And the reason that we evolved, our ancestors rather evolved in that way to even experience boredom, is to move us towards taking action. If you didn't feel bored, you wouldn't be inclined to take any actions, right? If you never felt the impetus to move, you would just stay put. And so boredom is a tool for activating motion, for getting you to actually move and do things that are in your long-term best interest, despite the fact that maybe in that moment you don't want to do it. But as we've evolved technologically, like our technological advancements have outpaced our biological advancements. So we're still pretty much the same biological machine that we were tens of thousands of years ago. And yet the state of technology, the state of society, civilization is very fundamentally different. And so we have the ability now to fully eradicate boredom. Whereas your ancestors, the sun goes down, they have a candle, they maybe have one book to read. They don't have much to do. So maybe they start drawing, or they start sculpting. They do other things. Like they don't distract themselves because they didn't have anything else to do. But we have this, infinite distraction machine in the form of our phones, in the form of our computers. And, there's no reason for you to have to be bored anymore. And because it's an unpleasant experience, most people run away from it, and they don't even realize that they're doing it. But at the moment that they even have the inclination of boredom, they're reaching for a distraction. The problem with that is that no deep thinking, no deep creativity, no deep creation can stem from a mind that is constantly turning through the energies of other people's inputs. And so if you're constantly consuming other people's thoughts and you don't make space for your own thoughts, then you are not producing your own unique genius. You are simply regurgitating other people's thoughts. You have a flywheel going that is not being pushed by your own energies. And more than that is, first, if you want to be a more creative, more productive, more effective human, you got to make space for that boredom so that you can actually have space for that inspiration to arise, and so you can actually hear your voice rather than hear the voice of others. The other side of this, though, is when you are consuming so much information, like this podcast is a really good example of this. You're consuming this information, and yet if you just jump from this podcast to the very next podcast, and then you go to Instagram and scroll for a bit, and then you watch some Netflix, you're constantly turning that flywheel in your brain, and you're never giving it a moment's rest just to settle back down. And so you're constantly filled with this feeling that though you're consuming, it doesn't feel like you're ever sated. You're never full, right? And the reason for that is because you cannot consume your way to fulfillment. It has to be created. And creation stems from the internal actions that you manifest, and not from external circumstances pushing themselves into you. And the only way to make space for that then is to actually allow yourself to be bored. to create your environments, create time in your day that would allow for the boredom to start to spawn. Go for a long walk, read a really boring book, just sit and stare at the wall, meditate. Meditating is one of the most boring things that you can do. And it's one of the reasons I think so many people struggle with it. Like within 15 seconds, they're like, oh, my mind is racing. I can't sit still. And it's like, yeah, because like you're just this spastic gerbil on Adderall. So that's the first thing. If you want a surprisingly simple step to creating a remarkable life, that's the first one, is to make space for boredom. Make space to hear yourself. Number 2, go hard and then go slow. Every time I see hustle porn, that's pushing this idea that you need to be going. You need to wake up early. You need to go, and fill every single minute of the day running, sprinting towards your goals. I'm reminded that that's simply not how humans operate. It's outside of, first of all, the biological underpinnings of how you even operate, right? Anuj and I were talking about this right before we started recording. We were like, he asked a question like, what do you think is the optimal amount of time for a training or education piece, right? Because we were talking about doing a 4-hour sales training, right? And he's like, is that even a good amount of time? Is that too much? Is that too little? And the number that first comes to mind for us was 90 minutes. 90 minutes because, the human throughout the day, you have your circadian rhythm, which happens every 24 hours. But then within a circadian rhythm, you also have your ultradian rhythms. That is a cycle every 90 minutes where you have more energy than lower energy, high energy, lower energy. And so really, you can't do more than 90 minutes of deep focused work, learning within a period before you need to take a break to reset and rejuvenate. And yet, if you buy into this narrative that you have to go and constantly be working and grinding, then you're going to burn yourself out, because that's just not how humans operate. And so like the idea of a 9 to 5 is actually kind of an inherently flawed structure. Same for school, right? Going to school at 7 a.m. and coming home at 3. That's like way more consecutive hours of deep work that you're expecting an individual to do that they simply can't sustain. And so there's going to be lulls during that period of time where they do less work. And that's why the studies show that on average, an 8-hour workday is really only filled with like 3 or 4 hours of actual meaningful work. The rest of it's just kind of like socializing or just doing like pretending to work, or not even pretending to work, just like fully just scrolling TikTok and like not giving a shit what your boss thinks. So like, I think it would be better in a lot of ways if we were to structure people's work days. So it's like, okay, you work 90 minutes and then you go home and you do something else and you come back, you work another 90-minute block and you go home and you come back and you work another 90-minute block. Obviously there's reasons why that's not like conducive for the modern workforce, but if you are an entrepreneur and you have the ability to structure your own schedule, you would be well served to think about this idea of going hard and then going slow. Go hard, then go slow. It's the feast and the famine, right? Sprint hard at the deep work when you're doing it, and then allow yourself really long periods of time to go slow. That's like making space for the boredom. What you want to avoid is that anxious middle, where you're not going hard and you're not going slow. Your RPMs are still staying high, but nothing's getting produced. And you feel that as like this constant pressure, this constant anxiety. And you know it when you're doing it. You know when you've spent 90% of your day in that anxious middle, because you get to the end of the day and you might have checked some things off of your to-do list, but you didn't really feel productive. And yet there's days when you go hard and then you go soft, you end up looking back and being like, I feel pretty good about that. And you feel good about it because you got meaningful work done when you decided to sprint, and you left yourself space to relax and shut off. The worst place, it's better to let your RPMs go at 4,000 RPMs for 90 minutes at a time, and then take, 3 hours just to idle at 1,000. That's better than just letting your engine constantly run at, say, 2,500 RPMs or 3,000 RPMs. It's like a high enough amount of output from the engine that it never gets to fully rest, but it's also not enough output for it to ever make meaningful results. And yet that is where the majority of people spend the entirety of their life, is right in that messy middle, not really getting the benefits of going hard or going soft. So that's number 2, go hard, then go slow. Number 3 is do simple things. Do simple things. Again, like complexity is often a mask for ineffectiveness. Like the more complex a solution or a system is, the more likely it is to actually not be effective at all. And it's just by going through the complex steps that we feel productive. And yet if you look at the output, you don't really have much to show for it. And in life, like, it's surprising to me, and this is why this episode is all about surprisingly simple steps. It's surprising how the building blocks, the foundations of a great life are built upon very simple activities that you don't even need money for in a lot of cases. You just need to be conscious of it and intentional about it. Things like eating clean, good food, right? Going to bed early, avoiding negativity, getting outside, getting sun in your eyes, moving your body, getting a sweat on, right? Like none of those things, eating clean, going to bed early, avoiding negativity, getting outside, working out. You don't need money for that stuff, right? Like you can make an argument like, oh, but eating clean is like, it's expensive and McDonald's is cheaper. And so bullshit, you're making bullshit excuses. Like, the simple things that you already have access to are the building blocks of the surprisingly remarkable life. So those are the 3 ideas that I want to share with you today. Make space for boredom, go hard, then go slow, and then do the simple things. You do those things consistently, because again, it's not about intensity. You do those things consistently every day for the next 90 days. I bet you will come back to this video. You will leave a comment and you will say, Anthony, that was remarkably simple. Well done. That's all I got. I'll see you guys in the next episode.